further up and further in.
I imagine that right now you're feeling a bit like Alice. Tumbling down the rabbit hole?
You could say that.
I can see it in your eyes. You have the look of a man who accepts what he sees because he is expecting to wake up.
Welcome, everybody. This is Team Rabbit Hole Edition 320 with Domini and Temple of the Body. Welcome, Domini. Welcome, Jim. Welcome, everyone watching live or later.
What up? When you said you were going to cut the intro song, you really did cut it. Anyway, welcome, Domini. It's my first time seeing you, so officially aloha. Something we do. Oh, well, of course, I got to read the blip. So, like he said, episode 320, Temple of the Body. Join the team as we get to know Domini, a West Coast body movement specialist who is helping teach people how to get out the kinks, flow with gyrokinesis, and wake up to their full physical potential. So, something we do on this show is pull cards for the episodes, and I've already pulled. I got to juggle so many things. Dang. The Knight of Wands, which looks like that. You guys can't really see it. It looks a little like Rocky Horror Picture Show with a flamethrower, kind of.
You can show it again. Yeah.
Nice.
Right. So he's been on the podcast a few times. David D'Angelo, shout out. He's got a David Bowie Starman Tarot deck. It's really dope. I use it all the time. So the Knight of Wands, I passionately set out to conquer. This is like the fiery part of fire. It's, the nitrous oxide in the gas tank kind of thing. Expansive energy, rushing into action, leaping up and speaking your mind, being bold. I'm curious, Domini, if anything syncs up for you on that front, archetypally or otherwise.
Yeah. I don't contain well. One of my therapists said that, and I just held it as like one of my greatest strengths. I don't contain well. And if anything ever threatens to contain me, that becomes agitation. Strengths can also be great as weaknesses, right? So it's one of my defining characteristics. Let's say that.
Word. I mean, I looked at your chart. You've got a whole lot of Virgo. I got to figure this out. Here it is. Whole lot of Virgo. Sun in Virgo. You got Venus in Virgo. But you also have a lot of Libra. So interesting stuff. I'll reference that as we go. You got a moon in Capricorn. So you're ironically, very like elite perfectionist in a sense. You're like health and body and top shelf shit, and that's all I want. But at the same time, you've got that Libra stuff. So you're like, well, I won't crucify you about it, but like I know what's best kind of stuff. So all right. I stumbled onto you because my girlfriend, shout out Kelly, she saw you on Instagram or something, and she showed me a video once, maybe like a year ago, of you doing what looked like almost really ballerina-esque meets Nordic almost like dungeon machine thing. Like I had no clue what was going on. It was just this crazy science fiction looking thing. So that's how I turned on to you. I follow you
like
on
this machine right here.
Yeah, exactly.
That's a gyrotonic machine.
It's no joke, but that's how I turned on to you. And you do a lot of stuff, so I want to kind of get into it. You're a fashion designer. You're into art, obviously, and movement, but you seem like you have a head on your shoulders, and you're interesting, and we want to hear your story. So as much or as little as you want to geek out, you're a Canadian originally. Like, tell us about, you know, your upbringing, your culture, how kind of you formulated your worldview, that kind of stuff, siblings, whatever you think is pertinent. We'll kind of pick your brain as we go.
It all started when I was 3, and I tried to ride my tricycle down the stairs into my mom's sewing area. I remember the beginning. My parents remembered the ending. Either way, that sense of hurtling momentum into a glorious pile of colors and fabric seems to be something that I've sought for my entire life. I mean, I'm not about to tell you my whole childhood stories, but there were some like clear definitions really young. I was born in Toronto. I remembered how to read in my early stages of being 3. I was reading the Berenstain Bears, Bears in the Dark book, and all of a sudden the markings on the, like my parents had read that to me until I knew it, and I would repeat the words with them, and then all of a sudden the markings made sense, and I was just off to the races. And when I was 5,
I'm curious though,
my
was it Berenstein with an EI? Are you on the Mandela effect front? Because I grew up with those books too.
I think so, but I'm also, I was born Canadian, and so I spell neighbor Neighbour, and my refrigerator seems to look different than, American spelling. Like, there's a lot of different spellings that Canadians have differently. So I think a lot of those splitting hairs things about does it have the EI don't resonate with me because I look at the word color and I'm like, does that have a U in it or not?
If you want it to be bougie, yes, it's like the
Yeah.
European
Oh,
color.
so now Canadians are bougie. Okay.
Well,
I'll
they are,
take it.
yeah, French, kind of more or less an origin. Although some
Yeah, at
Scots, I
least
guess,
I'm gonna go with bougie spelling from here on out.
yeah,
That
it's
sounds
So
posh.
fun.
random tidbit, bougie or not, but I once compared the population sizes of America or the US and Canada actually to Germany and Austria, which in some ways is a similar situation because the main language at least would be the same, but you have like a separate state with a lot less people. So
So you grew up in the Great White North, up in Toronto, which is not that far
Well,
from New York. I mean, I've never been there,
so
but it's
yeah. Well, so Toronto till I was 5, but like, so here's another thing about, I guess 2.5 to 3 were really formative for me. There were a few different formative years, and another thing that happened at 3 was that I found my mailbox, my favorite spot to go visit, which was down the street. I grew up on Lee Avenue, and so it was a mailbox that was, well, up the street technically. There was a bit of a hill, but I called it the California Restaurant. And my obsession with California never stopped. So at 5, my parents moved me to a logging town on Vancouver Island. It was beautiful. It was old growth. I was miserable as all hell and spent the rest of my childhood trying to get out. It was also the 70s. Canada didn't have a lot of TV as it was, and my parents were very anti that. So I grew up listening to the CBC, which is, for our American friends, it's like the equivalent of NPR, but for Canada, the Canadian Broadcasting Corporation, and imagining how I could make dresses out of moss and bark or sitting there and banging rocks apart at the beach. It was old growth forest. I was not happy. I was a city kid. I didn't understand how idyllic it was until far later in life. And so I spent my childhood trying to get out. I was dancing from a very young age. I was sewing, and I was also folding origami from a very young age. And honestly, folding origami was one of the most fun things, even more so than sewing, because there's that process of taking a 2-dimensional object and making it 3-dimensional. And for my constitution, the dopamine resulting from that is huge. And it wasn't until I was a teenager and read about Issey Miyake, who was a pretty iconic designer in the 1980s, and how he was structuring his construction of clothing more after the origami style of having it all in one piece and folding to create the separate components, as opposed to cutting a separate arm and a separate body. It would all be one piece and you would fold it. Something clicked, and all of a sudden origami faded away, and I started doing that with fabric. But ultimately, I'm pushing 50 now, and there comes a time in your professional life where you begin to think you have to knuckle down and focus on just one thing. We're talking a couple of decades ago now, and I was just so conflicted because I love teaching movement and I love to move, and I also really love to make clothes for people. The clothing industry is abhorrent for me. I can't stand working within its confines, but just the process of creation for someone and reflecting their energy, their soul on the outside is, again, it's like that 2-dimensional, 3-dimensional, taking an image in your head and all of a sudden transforming it into reality. So when I was within that conflict of, well, you have to pick one, that was about the time when I read the internet meme, The Soul's Rules for Life. And you can Google that, it still comes up. The first rule, the one that I read has 10. Well, of course, there's a number of variations, but that one had 10. And number 1 was, you get one body per lifetime. There are no returns. There are no exchanges. You may as well enjoy your time in it. And the rest of the lessons, the rest of the rules were all about how you're going to learn lessons. But that really stuck with me because I realized that is my purpose. And I am here on this earth to help people love being in their bodies. I do it in a number of different ways. And that can ebb and flow based on need and interest, both from the world outside of me and the world inside of me. But ultimately, I'm here so people can love the experience of being human.
I'm sure that's definitely accurate to the degree that you have so much Virgo and Libra energy, but you have a North Node, not, this is kind of Greek, but your Dharma, if you want to put it that way, is something to the, it's in Scorpio. It's actually conjunct your ascendant. So how you present yourself to the world is like intense, you're like an alchemical thing. Like you are.
Yeah, I'm a catalyst.
1,000%. And that's not only how people perceive you. So you walk into a room and they're like, oh shit, here we go. I mean, they're going to get that vibe, but also, that's what you're here to do. You're here to transform. You've probably had a lot of iterations of being, to some degree, more than most. You're probably more comfortable with death and transformation more than most. Yeah. So, quick aside on the origami stuff. I mean, that's how parachutes are folded. There's a whole lot of science behind it, and I think there's a documentary. I forget what it's called, but I saw something
Between
about origami.
the Folds.
Yes, thank you very much. That's exactly it. You knew it. Very good documentary. People should watch it, and it's just getting into the math of it and also the aesthetic application of it. So it's a whole world. So you're kind of, it sounded like you were talking about taking, from one dimension to the other and being very kind of particular, very Virgoan, and this is how it goes. There's an exact process. It reminds me a little of MC Escher and tessellations a little, where it's like you can kind of take things and make them fold. I don't even know where I'm going with this, but I just, the documentary came to mind, and I'm glad you brought it up, because I was like, yes, I've dipped my toe into that culture to the degree peripherally like that, but it seems like you actually geeked out on it from a young age.
I think you're constructing a metaphor for what you're feeling in your mind right now, and I'm with you.
All right, word. Yeah, you're gonna be like the deep depth psychologist. Like I should not be afraid of your. You're gonna have a stethoscope every now and then naturally, and be like, oh, your heartbeat's fluttering. I see it. All right, so so I've been to Vancouver. Van City's beautiful. It wasn't your thing, even though, like you were saying, in retrospect, it is like straight up idyllic, whatever, like nature, as opposed to the city. So when did you start? And you've got this going to California kind of Led Zeppelin mantra in the back burner of your psyche. So how did you percolate down there?
So I think I was probably 15. At that point, I was, punk rock and having the best year in my sophomore year in high school. And I opened up in, I think it was a high school library. I always loved to hang out in the library. For
Regular Hermione Granger up in here.
Yeah. Also, I mean, I know you and I are both big Narnia fans. So you go into the Magician's Nephew, right? And like the pools that you jump into these different worlds with. And so for me, books were like that, and I have, if you haven't noticed, I have a fantastically vivid inner world. That's where I built most of my metaphors from. And I think that's also because of the, that psychedelic experience of looking at words, but seeing it all evolve in your mind. So anyhow, I opened a Time Life book of the 1960s and 1970s. And I remember flipping to some pages about Haight-Ashbury, looking at the fashion, and just having this sinking feeling of, shit, I was born in the wrong country at the wrong time. Like, I missed it. And it was like missing a train on a European, adventure, but one like where you weren't going to make a really specific event. And, life continued on. I graduated from high school, got my scholarship money, got the hell out of Dodge, moved to Montreal, the most European city in Canada, and was having a great time there. And then there's a lot of other pieces folding into this story, but I'm trying to at least keep one singular narrative, because you and your viewers don't know me enough yet to be able to fill in the blanks. So there was one day when my dad called me up and told me that because of some questions I'd asked that Christmas, so I was, I think, 18 or 19 at that time, he began to investigate. He was American when I was born. He gave up his citizenship after that, and my parents had 3 other kids. So he started doing some research and discovered that I could claim my citizenship through my grandmother. So I did that. I went through all the legal paperwork, and I wound up moving to California that November to San Francisco. Actually, to study the gyrotonic expansion system, which is the technical name for this machine. I accidentally discovered that when I was in Seattle, the Christmas where I was asking those questions, because I'd gotten certified to teach Pilates and wanted to work out while I was in Seattle, and asked a dancer if there was a Pilates studio nearby. This was like the early 90s, before
I was
anyone
going
really
to
knew
say,
what Pilates was.
this is way up ahead on the curve.
Yeah, this is like pre-Madonna doing yoga. So I was also doing yoga at that time. My brother, while I was still living on Vancouver Island, he bought a French comic book of yoga positions. And I opened it up with all the typical attitude that I have, thinking this is going to be a piece of cake. And lo and behold, 2 hours later, I was late for ballet rehearsal. I was obsessed, and I started practicing yoga every night for the feelings it gave me. So anyhow, Pilates comes along. I got certified to teach Pilates, and that I'm in Seattle looking for a workout. Take a dance class, still want to work out, ask a dancer at class, do you know where there's a Pilates studio? I just want to work out. And she said, what's Pilates? And I said, you don't know what Pilates is? It's like yoga on machines. And she says, oh, White Cloud. And I'm like, great, some hippie, flaky, new age, West Coast Pilates studio. Because of course, at that point, I was East Coast, right? And when we are teenagers, we like to differentiate and say what we're not.
Especially in the 90s.
Yeah, right. Yeah, all the attitude. And now I'm hearing Alanis Morissette in my head. But anyhow, we are taking the bus in Seattle to the Green Lake District, and I walk in to White Cloud, Seattle, and it is not Pilates machines. And the first thing I hear is from Pulp Fiction, we're going to get medieval on your ass.
Which is what that gyrotonic machine strikes me as.
100%. Yeah. And, it got really interesting. Like the machines themselves, they look like torture devices. And then one day, Juliu, the guy who invented the system, he came up with these poles. We used to have sticks, and I just saw like a whole line of them hanging at the studio I was teaching at. It was like, great, now we have weapons. Like we're really getting medieval here. But he's got a beautiful sense of design and a brilliant concept of how the body moves in space. And I have a lot of respect for that system. So anyhow, I wound up moving to San Francisco with my brand new American passport to study the gyrotonic system.
All right,
Still
put a pin in there. Let's geek out a little.
Yeah.
So what was the culture you're coming from? Because your parents are obviously, cosmopolitan enough to be like, we're international, whatever. Were you doing psychedelics? What kind of reality were you a part of?
Well, the reason why my name is Domini Ann is it's a play on Anno Domini. And my mother was a nun, and my father was a Jesuit priest. My mom left the order to marry my father's good friend, who was also her teacher, also a Jesuit. And then he decided he would rather stay in the order. My mom realized that being a nun was not for her. She entered the convent at 17. So she left at 22, and she became a school teacher. This is the culture I came from, by the way, so bear with me. She became a school teacher in Toronto and also taught music and worked in a bridal shop. And then she met my dad about 5 years later, and they fell for each other. He left the order 6 months before he got ordained. So they were very active in the Roman Catholic Church on the island. The diocese was cheap. They only paid for a priest to come every other Sunday. I basically grew up going to church, being an altar server, wearing those Ku Klux Klan robes. My mom was at the organ. She composed an entire mass for our church, and every other Sunday, my father would be the lay presider. So he would basically run the entire mass, but he couldn't bless the hosts because he wasn't actually a priest. So
clearly a religious upbringing.
Oh yeah, very religious. I'm also going to fast forward. My mom died in 2012. It's been a minute. My dad is subsequently remarried to another phenomenal woman who also is an ex-nun. My parents both have types. They also are no longer identifying as Roman Catholic. His new wife, Sue, described what their way of looking at the world as new cosmology. This is what I've taken away from religion is like structure can be great. Pomp and circumstance have value to help us feel like what we're doing has more impact. And I learned the term pragmatic agnostic when I was 16, and I have gone with that from here on out. So I call myself a movement agnostic. I don't like dogmatic movement forms. If someone tells me that their form is the end all be all, I'm immediately going to go in like really? And from there, I'm just going to, pick apart that idea.
Tinker.
Yeah, it's like, really, you think you're all that great? How about this? I can't stand it when someone just decides there's a hierarchy because they believe something is best. I like to turn things around like a disco ball Rubik's Cube and appreciate it from all of the angles. So I guess the culture that I came from was a far more permissive idea of what Roman Catholicism was than what most people receive. And yeah, I discovered LSD at 14 and it changed my life. That and
That'll do it.
Montessori school.
Yeah.
I think that I wouldn't have the life I have had I not realized how much of it is something I can build in my mind. But then the fun part is when you take action and you look at what you have around you and you start to construct that vision you have in your mind, which for me, it's more of a postcard about your future. It's not just a dream. It's a snapshot of what's going to happen. And then the Virgo in me is like, well, how are we going to execute this?
Yeah, how do I align
the best
with the
way
image?
to build this?
Right.
Yeah.
That makes
and
sense.
what you own about those universal visions is your construction. It's your process.
That's your agency in it.
Yeah.
So it sounds like your mom's a nun type, demure, playing music. Your dad, the Jesuit priest, Raphael. Did you want to say anything about Jesuits at this point, or not really? He's got
It's just
I don't want to speak
fascinating.
for him. Yeah, we have a lot
the
of people.
Jesuits have, of course, as you may be aware or not, they have a huge influence over history. They're involved in all kinds of high-level organizations.
Yeah.
They seem to be everywhere where something important is going on, just like you said, in terms of construction of worldview, just to say it in a neutral way. And that's what they're all about, it seems.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
Oh, just Jesuits are really cool. I mean, I grew up with a lot of great priests. My dad was friends with a lot of great priests. I mean, they were priests in the 60s and the 70s, nuns and priests. And so I think we have some really sad views of the church and what priests can be. And it's also important to see the darkness. I mean, that was there too. But there are some really great, really thoughtful Jesuits who I have so much respect for.
Well, one that comes to mind is Pierre Teilhard de Chardin. I don't know if
Teilhard
you know
de
him.
Chardin. Yeah, of course.
I'm not way up on the Jesuit thing. Raphael's more aware of it because he's in more than I, but generally like Tartaria and history resets and cultural narratives. How do we inherit them, and Templars and all that kind of jazz? Because it seems there's a lot of moving and shaking and a lot of parts. My apprehension of Jesuits tends to be more like, I guess they were trying to be Jedis or something.
I mean, have you seen the movie Black Robe?
No. Should I?
Don't. It's pretty gory.
Okay. Well,
and Jesuits also perpetuated torture when they came to the New World. Arrogance in knowledge systems can cause humans to do awful things. But there's also that thoughtfulness. There's Fish on Fridays, and there's most of the Jesuits I know speak multiple languages, which I think is always helpful.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it gets funny with worldviews because I live with my girlfriend and her parents, and they're fundamentalist kind of Baptists, Southern Baptists in Alabama, and we're getting into stuff. And yesterday, not that this matters, I don't have to go on huge here, but basically it's like, okay, like the book says this, the culture says this. It's always perplexed me. It's like when you have a revelation, let's just say a Moses situation, just for an example, it's like, okay, you saw a burning bush, you've spoken to God, you've had this apotheosis or whatever. How do you translate that into a culture? How do you get the other monkeys to understand your trip? Is that even necessary? I mean, we tend to have very much like conquering and might makes right kind of narratives. So it's like the best idea is win because you're defending them, that kind of stuff, where it's like, I don't even know where I'm trying to go with this, but it seems like though there is a militant and kind of imperialistic element to what you're saying, like, it just happens through the culture over time. There could still be benefit and beauty in the thing in spite of the nature of the impetus behind it. I'm rambling. I'm a Gemini, so I can do this a lot, unfortunately. All right. So we don't have to geek out much about Jesuits, but I figured I'd pull over and ask Rafa if he wanted to have a pit stop on that, because he's somebody in the comments was like, oh, another one. I think that was one of our last guests.
No, Mephistopheles, just because it's recurring, but there's no, I haven't, how should I say, nothing against, regular anyone's, and especially with the Jesuits, I'm quite aware that they are usually one of the best educated ones, actually. And just like you said, speak multiple languages, and they, intellectually and so on, they know what's up. And of course, you have, good and bad people anywhere, obviously. So.
Yeah, he went to a Jesuit school himself. I haven't.
Well,
I didn't even know
it's
about.
Always
Jesuits.
what they say. It was a formerly Jesuit school, but still, even today, you have quite a few of those in Austria and maybe in Germany and other places too. They now call them humanist schools. So they were usually formerly Jesuit, and now they just call them humanist. And the main point is that you actually do learn languages like French and so on.
Yeah.
So a little blinker went off and you understood who I was talking about. Do you have anything you want to talk about in terms of Chardon and his thing? Because he has this whole very Terence McKenna evolving.
Yeah.
I mean, it's very Christian, but at the same time, it's scientifically like aware, and it's like we're in an evolving thing.
I feel like when my mom was in the convent, she discovered Hildegard von Bingen, and Hildegard von Bingen was probably one of her superheroes. And then later on, she discovered Teilhard de Chardin when I was in my early adulthood, and she got really into him. I think more so than my dad. I mean, they always both read a lot of books about philosophy and religion and history. But no, I don't have a lot to say about Teilhard de Chardin myself.
Well, just the drive-by for people who have never heard of him. He was a French kind of priest, and the idea, I mean, at the time, the ideas of Darwinism and stuff were seeping in, but how does a religious, when you look at Genesis and it's like, it's 7 days and this is exactly what it is. How do you start using the informers of reality around you that definitely progress? So we started, whether it's true or not, I'm not even trying to debate, but it's like, all right, things evolve and progress, and maybe it's not, a literal 7 days and all this kind of jazz. He started getting into the idea. Oh, go ahead, Raphael.
I'm just briefly showing one thing, because you're co-streaming on our dear friend's Andreas Xirtus channel, and this is one of his main sites. And here he says, whatever death is a mug game, drink mineral water, time travel is real, Tatara is everything. And then you may choose whether to read the philosophy of Teilhard de Chardin now or pursue other clues and interests. So yeah, all about
right. Because
he's
kind of he's this halfway point between trying to understand the Tao as it stands, in a sense, like where do we find ourselves in the river of time and space, and where is it going? And he kind of had this radical, almost like a Marshall McLuhan thing, who's a Catholic from Canada, I think, who is, we're evolving into the body of Christ, and all of creation is going to wake up to its awareness of itself, and just fascinating stuff. If people haven't geeked out on that, they should go down the rabbit hole. Terence McKenna has a lot. I think on YouTube he has a good little lecture on it at some point. That's how I learned about it back in the day. Anyway, we don't have to geek out on that anymore. I just was curious if you had any tidbits. So it's okay. So you get to San Francisco. I mean, obviously Manifest Destiny, very cool stuff. The fashion's pushing it. I've been there, but it's been 20 years. I think Raphael's been there too, to Haight-Ashbury. San Francisco is beautiful. I mean, the West Coast is beautiful, but
Haight-Ashbury is a trip. And I just briefly have to say, because you mentioned the fashion there, I was there in 2015, I believe. I was pretty broke, so I only got some socks. They were pretty cool. I lost them eventually, but yeah, I was there. I was like, so this is where all this festival style wear is coming from. This is like the origin point of anything. And you mentioned, certain mind-altering substances, and especially there, because I had nothing much to do. I had a place. Just 2 times a week, I went down there and literally hung out with I want to say street kids, like people randomly selling weed or whatever, sleeping in the park and stuff. But it really seemed like this is some strange interdimensional intersection. Partially maybe because you have some of these, I don't know, 18 to 30-year-olds there, and they're maybe a bit, how should I say, mentally divergent and so on. You have this thing going on, and it's almost like its own thing, like a college campus unto itself, between these teenagers and young adults hanging out. It was really crazy. And I'm not sure how much time you've spent there, but at least at that point, there was a comedy club actually called the Milk Bar, which of course gave me super crazy vibes from my school and learning. What was the book called with the Milk Bar?
Clockwork Orange.
Exactly.
Yeah, Kubrick.
Yeah.
And then just there, and very crazy place. So just 2 intersections or something, but very, very interesting energy.
How did you
Yeah.
find the shift to North America? I mean, you were coming from the woods, and then you got to one of the probably most, like he's saying, the most hyper weird pockets of America and California, even specifically. How'd that go?
Are you talking to me?
You, yeah, Dominique.
Yeah, well, I came from Montreal, right? So Montreal and San Francisco are in many ways, I think, sister cities. And the thing with San Francisco is they've had, I suppose, if we want to give the city a gender, um, a number of different iterations, like phases, that have been really strong, that have been documented. And I think that one thing that we need to appreciate more in our love of history and geography is that locations have their own emotional evolution just as humans do, and you can't ever step in the same river twice.
Mm.
Like the Moscow that I knew in 1992, when like Yeltsin was still in power, and they still had the people who took Gorbachev during the putsch like in jail. The mafia wasn't that strong yet. That Moscow is gone. It transformed after I left, and you can't ever go back there. And it's very much the same in San Francisco. So you went in 2015, and that San Francisco, I think I'm still referring to her as a her, she's going through a really awkward phase with tech. And it's not the San Francisco I knew, and it's not the San Francisco that we knew in the 60s and 70s either. I mean, that was a moment of potential. What we do know about the West Coast is that those people who arrived on the East Coast, the ones who liked to conform, they stayed. And it's the ones who kept on striving for something different, who made it all the way across the country until finally you hit water and you could go no further. And I think that, and also just the strong dreamer strike it rich contingent of San Francisco will always be there, because that's embedded beneath the surface of the city. And what's the word I'm looking for? In the rocks that are under the city, just like in New York.
The
There's
geology.
a different kind of quartz underneath that city. And so when you get down, you're shot with energy that's like 220 volts if you're always used to 110. So when I used to go to New York to study before I moved there, like I would get down, I wouldn't sleep for 2 or 3 days because of the energy going through me, because of that city. San Francisco has a similar energy, but it's gold rush energy. It's like you come with a dream and you think you're going to strike it big and you think you can change the world. And that's just kind of embedded in what's beneath the concrete. So when I was there twice. I lived in San Francisco from 1994, maybe 95, till 1999. And that was when I trained in the Gyrotonic method. I wound up dating one of the internet architects, like an original person who kind of put it all together, and fell in with the internet raver scene, and wound up getting jobs teaching yoga at tech companies, and then also making the clothes for the people there. We would party at night, and then they needed to get in for meetings in the day. And so I started taking the dancewear that I'd been sewing for myself as a punk rock ballerina just a few years before then, and turning it into like raver stretchy pants that they could wear out dancing and then to work. And so that's also where one of my mottos for clothing came up. It's look fabulous, feel naked. Right? You always want to be able to present well, and you don't want to be disturbed by what you're wearing. So life was going really easy, and it was like the rave culture, electronic music culture, tech explosion. I never got to live in San Francisco in the 60s and 70s, at least not in this body. I'm pretty sure I did in a previous incarnation. I actually had dreams about her. But I got to experience that really
zeitgeist.
Unique moment in time, right? And then I moved to New York and had a great time there, met an Israeli, fell in love, wound up moving to Tel Aviv. And I was happy in Tel Aviv. Then we broke up, and I was still happy, but I shaved my head and started dating girls and quit doing yoga and started doing martial arts. But I was fine, totally fine, right?
I've got to say, this episode is so Knight of Wands. I mean, talk about bold and just ripping through life, testing all the, every Baskin Robbins flavor. We're going to try it.
Yeah.
Keep going. I didn't mean to cut you off. I'm just like,
no,
this is not
sure. Why not? Yeah. Let's try this.
Fire-breathing dragon energy. For sure.
I didn't realize I was going back to San Francisco. I thought I was going to Sao Paulo to study capoeira at the Sasuna Academy with my boyfriend at the time, who was some kid who followed me home from a hip hop club, who just didn't leave. So I wound up needing a roommate, and then he was my boyfriend. He didn't know what hit him. He kept on going to Brazil, and I stayed in San Francisco with my friends. I found, as usual, the world opened up and gave me a really great place to stay. And that was also something that's happened consistently in my life, like where I'm supposed to be, the spot of my dreams opens up and I just need to go live in it. And so my second iteration in San Francisco, I was living in a house in the Castro with a couple of guys who've become my gay brothers. They're the gunkles to my kids. And we had a dance studio out back. It was built by Gerald Arpino, who's the other half of the Joffrey Ballet. And Jerry built that for his boyfriend, James Howell, who died of AIDS in the 80s, which was another really impactful chapter for San Francisco that I didn't live through. But San Francisco's had some chapters that were like global, right? In how what it was going through was this condensed microcosm of what the world was experiencing. It had the 60s, it had the 70s with disco and rock, and then it also had the 80s with the AIDS crisis. And I arrived there in the 90s, having not experienced that. But so anyhow, back circling into this house that I was living in the Castro with this dance studio, and I formed my sewing studio in the front room that I was given. And I wound up falling in with another bunch of young artists who were doing clothing and upcycling. It was right before Festigear kind of became a thing. Leather and Feathers came in a few years later, but we started doing a lot of upcycling, which is taking old clothing and then transforming that, using it as raw materials to create something new that still maintains some of the structure of the old. And man, we played and we had fashion shows in clubs, and there were like underground raves everywhere. And I met a bunch of kids from MIT and Harvard who just really discovered, like, who discovered they loved communal living. They were called False Prophet. They still exist, but it's a new generation, and their parties were amazing. And myself,
it's like Burning Man vibes, basically.
Burning Man vibes, but like taking it into your entire life. Like, what do you do before you have kids?
Right.
You put all of your energy into life experiences, and also hopefully some, like, you're professional. Like, what am I looking for here? Into the body of work you want to give to the world, beyond just pushing humans out of your body. What else do you want to leave here? And I feel like I really got to enjoy that with a bunch of talented DJs, musicians, forward thinkers, designers.
I mean, you've got stories for days, no doubt.
Yeah.
You were really in a very tight whirlwind of action. There was, I mean, in a weird way, the muse kind of travels around, so I'm sure people were still thinking and doing things, you know, at various points. But every now and then, San Francisco, whether it's Greece back in the day or whatever it is, like there's certain pockets, Paris, you know, in the early 20th century, there's certain places where it's like the lightning is striking. This is where it's like all the forces are creating thunderclouds, and this is happening now. And then they bleed over and affect the global culture eventually in some other way. But yeah, I like, we don't have, you know, forever to talk about this stuff, but I can just tell you're very Annie Oakley vibes, like, you know, trigger happy, go for life. With Jupiter and Gemini, obviously your luck is playing. Like, you want to play, you want to look at life as kind of a game, a Narnia wardrobe to walk through. And it seems like yeah, many magician nephews pools have you dipped your toe into. So, and some of the most like fascinating ones, like not every world is I mean, whether it's Tel Aviv or San Fran or New York or whatever, you're going to these hubs of culture where at a specific time, the 90s and 2000s, where, you know, new paradigm, like the new zeitgeist was being formed. I mean, that's kind of what it is, the global kind of tech, but also bohemian, like neo-bohemian kind of thing going on. So very cool. I mean, I don't want to cut you off. I'm just like, we could geek out on your stories forever, because you clearly have a very colorful past and present. So yeah, so you got back to San Fran the second time and you were sewing and stuff. I mean, this is random to interject, like how, like with fantasy and stuff, Narnia, you were saying in the videos you sent me, you've got all these dragons and little faux white witch garden, which I appreciate growing up on those books. What were some, I mean, are these like informers that you bring with you forever? It's like, that's your safe place in terms of Narnia. Like, I've reread them a few times to girlfriends, and I actually just showed my now girlfriend the BBC version of those movies. Tell me you've seen the BBC things. You know what I'm talking about? If you haven't, I'm going to message them to you. They're like Shakespearean.
Yeah.
They went through the
Go
silver
ahead.
chair and they're cracked.
Oh my
Like,
God. Then
yeah.
send them to me.
Oh,
I would
I
love.
can't believe you haven't seen that shit. So
Well,
it's
I was
good.
raised without television, and so I spent most of my younger adult life trying to catch up on the 80s, and
Mm,
that a lot slips through my fingers because everything I do, I love to work with my hands,
mm.
which means you can't really watch TV and do that.
No, and I'm not. Yeah, you're Sonic the Hedgehog. You're ripping through it, so it's like you don't have time to watch everything. I'll send that to you. But if
I
people go to
will.
YouTube and type in BBC Narnia, it doesn't do The Magician's Nephew, but it does Lion Witch through Silverchair, and they're phenomenal. The new
Cool.
Disney things are crap, so I don't even count them actually. All right, but yeah, like I'm kind of curious, like what are some of the go-to aesthetics for you, like film, books, philosophies, whatever? Are there things you tend to gravitate towards, or are you just ripping through many iterations and transforming through whatever you're huffing at the time?
Yeah. Well, podcasts are always a big one for me. And that can be anywhere from just like dropping into Radiolab, which I think Radiolab, which is on NPR, is phenomenally produced, especially in how they create soundscapes, right? And so I still like to have the visions come up in my mind as I work with my hands. And I think it's one of the reasons why I will still return to sewing. I mean, honestly, my career now is much more focused on teaching movement, helping people fully inhabit their bodies. Um, I don't think we've mentioned, I also do human dissection. I mean, that's like my primary method of
Like
study these
anatomy?
days. Yeah.
Okay, Da Vinci
So,
style, going grave robber.
oh,
Yeah, what are you
yeah,
doing?
not grave robbing because it's not fun to be locked up. You can't, it's not that effective. But no, I go to a lab I consider a sacred space in Colorado Springs. It's called the Institute for Anatomical Research. I've actually written it into my estate plan that I want my body to go there, and
Hmm.
I've included the costs for transporting my body unfixed, which means no formaldehyde, which means I have to be frozen to send me there so I can keep on teaching after my soul has no more use for this meat car. It's an incredibly reverent experience to meet the artifacts of our existence like that. And for me, as someone who works with bodies, it's like meeting your best friends.
Hmm.
So that, why am
It
I
makes me think of
talking about
Westworld a
this?
little. I don't know if you ever saw that show where
Yeah,
the intro where you start seeing the intricacies of the machine of the human body. It is a temple, and we can get into like Adam Kadmon, how holographic, and the organs and the chakras and all this stuff. But at the
yeah.
same time, it's like this is a highly evolved piece of machinery.
Well,
Um,
and
Go ahead.
there's no vacant space inside the body, and we have these concepts of our body as being fragile
Hmm.
because our nerves are very sensitive. And so they're afraid of, being damaged. And so we have pain, right? That also gives us an experience of the inside of our body. But when you actually take it apart, it's like packing peanuts in there. It is so sturdy. And it's not that things can't break. It's just that you learn how much of your body's experience of itself is just the nervous system as opposed to the actual different substances that create it. And then not to mention, like we're in Colorado Springs, which has some of the most magnificent natural architecture you've ever seen. And every single lab that I've gone to, there's this one gorgeous day. It's either day 2 or day 3, depending on the length of the lab, where I at this point I'll lead evisceration, or I got to the last time anyhow. So actually kind of like help people through it. You go through the evisceration, basically. Which means you're opening up the digestive system. So you slice apart the abdominal wall, and then you open it up through the peritoneum, which is the sac that holds all of your digestive organs, separating them from the muscles around it. And then you get to explore all of the different organs, all of which have different tissue qualities, like the spongy liver or like the slippery stomach that's still a bag. And you really realize like we are just a series of tubes, but the journey is incredible. And then you get to the intestines, which most people will describe like coral, like it looks like a coral structure, but for me, it always looks like a flamenco skirt.
I can see what you mean. Yeah,
Like a
brain
flamenco skirt.
coral. I think people are thinking. Yeah,
Yeah,
but
yeah. Well, and there's a
the
lot of
ruffles
reflect.
of the skirt.
Exactly. And so
Yeah.
the way they make the ruffles of the skirt, because I've sewn flamenco skirts, is you cut circles and then you cut the circle into a spiral. So the ruffle is actually coming off of this like
Well, it's not
triangular
origami, but
shape.
almost.
It is. It's the same kind of thing. And so you're creating dimension by how you cut versus like just taking a straight strip and then ruching it together, which makes ruffles, which is a traditional way to make a ruffle. This has a whole different feel. So when you see the way that
It's almost like a
mesosphere just
loofah.
coiling around.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's this organic spiral shape, right? And so then we have the intestines, which are all formed around something like this. So the mesentery, which is the bag that surrounds the intestines, is anchored off of one side of the body. So you have this coral shape. Anyhow, I'm telling you all of this because after the evisceration, I always find myself hiking through the Garden of the Gods.
Beautiful spot.
And yeah, so you know it. And
Yeah, I've
then
lived in
for
Colorado
anyone
for a
watching,
decade.
yeah, anyone watching on YouTube, you should go pull up some pictures because it's like all of a sudden you're surrounded by these monolithic natural outcroppings that resemble pieces of human body. And I go from being God in, it's like Gulliver's Travels, right? And like, not God is I can control everything, but it's like God is like, I'm overseeing
Observer
this.
from that place.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden I'm inside of it, you
As
know, like
above, so below.
Lilliput.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's, I mean, I think that's like what I think about the most. Like I pull up ideas in my head and I turn them around, be it that I'm like right now, what I like to think about is how I'm going to make an Elizabethan style wedding dress entirely out of maxi pads because we're doing a collection for something called the Big Sur Fashion Show, which is a local show. Now I live down in Carmel, so Big Sur is like down the street, where you don't use any fabric. And I've helped them for years, but I've never participated because I like to sew with fabric. And then I met this phenomenal young woman. She kind of reminds me of like all of our designer group friends when we were in our late 20s. She's like that age. And she started telling me about wanting to make a collection out of feminine hygiene products. And I just like, after I got over my initial queasiness, oh my God, the potential. So anyhow, clearly we have to have a wedding dress made entirely out of maxi pads, and the only song we're going to have playing is going to be "You Are the Wind Beneath My Wings," right? And so what I do to amuse myself when I'm driving or when I can't sleep at night is I imagine how I'm going to construct this dress. So it's the same with like remembering dissection when I'm working with bodies. Other modalities that I like if I'm not creating it myself, it's definitely podcasts. And books these days are primarily picture books. They're the catalogs from collections from the Met. Right? So I have a whole library of just fashion books, and I'll look at the pictures to see what pictures I get in my mind.
That's what's up. No, I mean your Scorpio rising conjunct your North Node is coming in hot because it's like most people will be queasy and never even go into some of these more taboo cultures, even the vivification kind of school and stuff. A very unique trip you've got going on. Raphael, were you going to say something? I heard you breathe in a way that made me think you might.
No.
All right, I'm tripping on it. All right.
I'm listening.
So we can hop around, and you're good at that because you're Jupiter and Gemini. But Kelly wants to know, what does the machine do for the body?
Oh, here, let me show you. I'm just going to move my Apple and headphones away. And the machine, set you up this way here. I'm going to raise you up.
I've never been to Big Sur. That's one thing I want to check out at some point. I've heard nothing but good things.
Oh, Big Sur is magnificent. Yeah, the ghosts out there are pretty powerful. I spent some time teaching at Esalen, and it was
Esalen Institute. Yeah.
Yeah, Esalen. So now I'm just trying to really stabilize this tripod, which is, I think, fundamentally unstable. Let me put some weight behind it. Let's see if that works. Yeah, long enough. Okay, so now you can see it. There is a tower in the background with straps, and then what I'm going to show you here is these great handles. So the gyrotonic expansion system is based around circular movement patterns. They use the term spiral a lot. I think that's more of a trademark thing because maybe twist means something different for them. But either way, rotation in the body. And then it initiates movements coming from the center and going to the outside, like for the most part. Of course, there's always other things too, but I'm just going to show you some of the basic movements here. So this machine I love because I can build any environment I want. And I think that's one thing that kept me fascinated with the system more so than others, is that the equipment built for this practice, you can configure it to create any type of environment you want for the human body once you understand principles of gravity and resistance. So right now I'm angling these handles down. And then I can also control the length of the handles, right? So they go out and in. I could also control where the arms are. So I can do whatever I want here. And right now we're going to decide that what I want to do is stretch my back. So I'm going to put both hands on one handle. I'm going to go around and then back it up. If I wanted to twist more, I could change my hand positioning. But wait, there's more. I can do whatever the hell I please, which is actually what gets me in trouble with the system, is that I keep on doing whatever the hell I please. And I can
some Knight of Wands shit right there. It's
Yeah.
funny because a lot of the movements you're doing whenever I trip, and I'm a psychonaut, so I love tripping. These are the things that I end up finding myself doing, where it's just like a lot of
Yeah.
weird stretches. So this really does facilitate those kind of intuitive movements.
It's funny. I had one client. She actually owned a vineyard. She's friends with Isabella Allende, one of the coolest women I've ever met. So this was back in San Francisco, and I was working at San Francisco Gyrotonic, and she stuck her head in and asked, "What do these things do?" And I said, "They feel like sex and they get you high." And that was how her entire training relationship started.
Yeah.
But it is like that. It's psychedelic. It can go anywhere. And what I love is that principles of exercise science completely apply. Can this system reverse bone density, like reverse osteoporosis? No, it's not going to give you the cardio that you would from getting a run. It's not going to give you the strength you need from weightlifting. But that's okay. What it does is it creates fluid movement and is complex, and it opens up your brain, and it allows you to explore how your body can move in space in ways that support it, that we never thought were possible.
Or that at least aren't supported in cultures generally. I mean, maybe there are some little niches in it, like, whatever, yoga, obviously, and stuff like that. But whether it's a hyper-seated reality, most people are sitting at their desks all day or whatever. We're in our bodies in such a it is what it is. On the one hand, I mean, it's like not, it's logical as to why we're doing it, because we're just conforming to our environment and then just kind of shoving ourselves in there. But that thing, so is the idea to like unwrap from the spine? Are you thinking about a center and trying to get like, what's the philosophy behind? Obviously you're doing like the tendrils of the fractal, but like where's the root? Like it's all in the spine kind of thing?
Yeah, I mean, for Julia, who's the guy who invented it, like I think it's all coming from the spine, and we can split hairs there. But in general, the movement originates in center and it goes out. So I just want to show like one other really cool thing about this gyrotonic tower too, because this is what made me fall in love with it. And not just me, but many people, is the part when you lie on your back and you wave your legs in the air and you call it exercise. So as opposed to like typical gym equipment, which generally is like, it's got resistance, the cables are going to move in like one direction. So it goes back and forth. Or Pilates, which has springs. So as I pull out, the resistance increases. So what's happening here is that there's a pulley system on the back, and I can change the amount of weight. I'm just trying to make sure my stand doesn't fall over here.
You're doing so well doing so many things at once, I have to say. Good job.
One day I will grow more hands, and then I will have to make more shirts. I can change the weight, the amount of weight that's on here, and that will change the resistance, but the resistance is the same no matter where I'm going in space with this cable. So it feels like you're exercising in water. Right, and I'm just going to show you some of those movements now. I'm also going to increase the weight on the legs because I like a lot of weight. I think that resistance is what helps us define who we are and where we are in space. And that's a philosophy that goes for the body as well as for the mind, This is fine. Let's just keep this here. That's going to tip.
I like the dog. What's its name?
Oh, Zoolander and Big Blue.
Okay, I didn't see Big Blue. Oh, they're way over there in the corner. Okay, I got you.
Yeah, there's Zoolander. Big Blue is a small guy. He's the furry puppy. You don't get to have one dog called Zoolander without calling the other one Blue Steel, but he pretty quickly just became Big Blue.
Gotcha.
Yeah, so anyhow, here we are. Almost done with the show and tell exercise. Unless you want to see all the other machines I have too.
I feel that we're geeking out on your world. This is new to me. I mean, there's some questions in the comments, but I'll ask them in a second after you kind of give us whatever.
So basically, you attach these straps to your feet for what we call hamstrings. And then this, it's like a family of movement with all kinds of leg patterns. And every pattern is an exercise that has a name, like starburst or stirring the clouds or egg beater or figure eights. But how much fun is this? You know, and can you see how great it is for your digestive system and how happy it's going to make your back? As far as isolating muscles, there's no there. It's all a chain of command. So my abs are working into my hamstrings, into my psoas, etc. But yeah, that's the gyrotonic expansion system in a nutshell.
What's your favorite part about it, and what do you think needs to be improved upon, if anything?
Gosh, my favorite part about it is that it is very much never ending. And my non-favorite part of it is the administration. So I was certified at the highest level in the gyrotonic system. I was something called a certifying master trainer, who
Jedi.
basically, worked with the guy who invented it, giving the final exams, training the master trainers. And unfortunately, what happened was the higher up I got in the system, the more they tried to control who I was and how I taught.
Well, that's the nature of fucking dominance hierarchies.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I have a lot of thoughts.
Welcome to the order.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Now you represent us. All those things we thought you were cool for are no longer cool.
Iron them out.
Yeah. So it's I stepped down. I hold a license to teach as a trainer now, and I think I've found a great example of what boundaries can mean, right? Boundaries are the distance you need between yourself and someone else to thoroughly enjoy them. And I have that distance now because I love the system and I love a lot of the people in it, but I had to put myself in a position where I was no longer inside of their box. So that was a whole learning process.
Knight of Wands, you got to be bold, got to make your own moves. Do what you goody want. Kelly was asking, does it heal torn ligaments and tendon, etc., or is it a healing modality once they are put back together?
It's a healing modality. What I want to say is it depends on how you apply it. It depends on your trainer and how you know your body.
Right.
I think that kinesiotape is a really wonderful thing. And if you got someone who knows how to tape you, if you have a tear, and also like, what is the severeness of that tear, right? So it can offload pressure on the body. It's great for dancers. If dancers have sprained an ankle and they want to stay moving, yeah, we can put someone in the hamstring series and do that. Many people really appreciate it when they have back problems later in life because it helps them restore fluid motion in a way that still supports them. There are therapeutic applications for the gyrotonic method that also are given in Germany in hospitals when someone herniates a disc. It's very effective physical therapy when applied that way. But it really depends on how you want to apply it, because just like yoga, this system is infinite and it can look like a lot of different things. There are 5 different machines in the system. I have one that's a hybrid of 2, but there's a lot of like invisibility. You can't see the whole system here in my studio, and I have reasons for that.
Okay.
So yeah. I mean, if you want another really healing modality, I would say the Galileo, which is a medical grade whole body vibration device that drives muscle contractions from the outside in. That's where I really help people come back into their bodies and activate dormant muscle tissue, restore circulation, and just change stuck areas of the body really quickly. So that machine looks far less sexy. That machine looks like this. I'm just going to walk this over here. So this is a Galileo.
Great studio, by the way. It's very functional. Yeah, very clean.
Yeah. Welcome to my house of plants and dragons. This is the only piece of me that is clean. So this that box right there is the Galileo.
And it just shakes the crap out of you.
Well, here. So I'm going to start it super low, super slow. We'll see if I can get you a visual on this. Yeah. So you see how it's side alternating. So the frequency here is 5 hertz, which technically would mean like 5 muscle contractions per second, but in fact, it's not generating any muscle contractions per second at this slow speed. Again, hold up. I just have to use a weight to stabilize my tripod, and then I'm going to stand on it and talk to you. So
reminds me a little of the things from the 50s where women were like, if we get shaken up really hard, we'll lose our belly.
Totally. Yeah, totally. We actually had one of those when I was living in the Castro with the Gunkles. And man, the parties we had. So anyhow, eventually we broke that.
You're going to need to write a biography. You realize that, right?
Yeah, there's 2 books that I'm going to write eventually. One is Jedi Spine Tricks. The other one is called 2 Kung Fu Thanks for Everything.
Beautiful.
So Yeah, I'm wearing black, so you can't really see it, but this is
I
like
can
an
see it.
expensive wobble board.
Yeah.
But if I increase the frequency here at about 12 hertz, which is 12 muscle contractions generated per second, now, if I were quadriplegic and was stood up on the machine, I would be standing on my own because at this frequency, it's driving muscle contractions from the outside in.
Right.
This is why these machines were developed, were to help people with spinal cord injuries maintain their muscle tone until we have the stem cell technology to be able to repair a spinal cord. And this thing goes up to 33.5 hertz. Right now I'm at 23 hertz. And that's basically just, it's in a a range called continuous co-contraction,
Right.
where my muscles aren't even releasing in between generated contractions. And this is a range where I can actually train huge amounts of flexibility really quickly. So for someone who couldn't touch their toes, I could have them here, maybe have them push their hands to the stool, and just a few times straighten and bend their legs, and their muscles would have learned that range. And because they're contracting, they feel safe, and they can
Right.
recreate that on their own.
Right.
So I think that's probably the most powerful tool I have in my studio, and it looks the least interesting. It looks like
No,
a
it's
little black
cool.
box.
It's a lot like the muscle guns. I mean, basically a full body muscle
Yeah.
gun, and it's causing you, like you're saying, to contract to the point where you're getting, I guess, to the
Yeah.
core, and then you work out from there. Even though it's
So-
coming out to in. I'm rambling terribly
Yeah.
about this, but yeah.
Well,
it's
I want to
cool.
make a crucial difference, right? So
Mm.
those muscle guns, I have so many of them. I think they're great. I think they're fun. And like most pieces, I'll buy one expensive one and then get a bunch of cheap ones and see what the difference is. Honestly, you don't need to buy yourself a cheap, or you don't need to buy yourself an expensive muscle gun. You might want to get yourself an expensive vibration plate, but those vibrating massage guns even work if you get like a $20 one off of Amazon.
That's what I'm rocking.
And yeah, and so what happens is vibration is the language of the nervous system, right? Every connection we have with the outside world is a collision of sorts, be it that I'm walking on the floor or that sound is colliding with my ears, creating an aural landscape inside of me. It's a collision, and our nervous system experiences that impact as vibration. It travels through our nerves and lodges in the cerebellum, the brainstem, where we translate that vibration into meaning. And somewhere between our brainstem and our brain, we conceive of our world. So when we start inputting the body with vibration, it's very familiar. And unless you're some of the few people, like probably 3 to 5% of the population just doesn't like vibration, fine, they don't need it. No vibrating toothbrushes for them. But for everyone else, it's kind of compelling. And vibration can also mask pain, which can help us have consistency if we want to change stuck muscles. So when I work with vibrating guns, I actually put one of them on my hand, and then I have my fingers vibrating, and I'll start to manipulate the muscles. And that's something I would counsel you with if you, Jim, or anyone else who's listening likes massage guns, as opposed to just putting it on your body. Put it on your hand and see what you can feel. Hold your vibrating hand on your forearm and then move your fingers around to feel the muscles that start to vibrate underneath it. And
More
that's where you can
participatory.
really start untangling knots.
I mean, obviously, Raphael, I imagine you're here still. You are a pro at this. This is what you do. So I've seen some of your Instagram videos and I got the gist, but like now I'm starting to realize just the depth of quality. Same thing happened last week. We had a DJ on and I was like, oh my God, he's making gear and he's doing some cool shit. Like sometimes I throw my lure in and grab a fish and I'm like, oh my God, it's a magical. I caught Loch Ness. What's going on here? So, Raphael, do you have any comments or questions or anything? There's so much to this.
I'm enjoying the presentation. Yeah, there's a lot to it. I only have the most rudimentary knowledge about dancing or yoga. But yeah, of course, some people are wondering just if anyone would be interested in like this amazing device on which you were stretching on. What is the price point for these? Or are there usually like gyms you can go to, special ones that have those? Or how does that work?
With the Gyrotonic system, I don't think that they're selling equipment to anyone who's on a trainer right now. That's changed over the years, and you would go to a Gyrotonic studio to learn the system. Depending on how big your city is, you may wind up finding a Gyrotonic center that has enough machines you could go into group class, which is the most cost-effective way of starting that kind of training. If Otherwise, it's going to run you between $100 to $200 per session, depending on the price point of living wherever you're living.
Right.
So it's like kind of a one-on-one boutique training thing. With the Galileo, these are primarily in medical centers, but I have a lot of home users who use them too. And I actually teach an open class online once a week. That's something where you could reach out to me, and I can direct you as far as if you wanted to do whole body vibration. But yeah, with the Gyrotonic system, you can go to the organization's website, gyrotonic.com, and look. Or also, I would just kind of type in hashtag Gyrotonic on Instagram, see what comes up, see if you can find a trainer in your area or someone you resonate with. There's also a whole form of movement.
Only, not to interrupt you, only case in point, I just looked it up for Vienna, and there is even a studio in Vienna where I live, and it's not such a big city,
Yeah.
maybe 2 million people, so I guess everyone can find something within their vicinity.
Yeah.
So, okay, so this, I mean, we don't have to wax forever on this, but it gets into like the idea of this is obviously a transformative technology that maybe even should have always, I mean, technology itself is evolving, so we didn't have access to these kinds of things. One could argue, chakra chanting and stuff is a way to vibrate, and there's all sorts of theories about people lifting blocks and making pyramids or whatever. Given the zeitgeist now where it's like this stuff is not in Walmart, but it's available and it's probably going to get cheaper or more accessible over time, just kind of like cell phones or whatever. What is your own ethos on like accessibility and like, should this be in every school and every, should this be like where the town center is hubbed on and everyone's healing, or should this stay niche, like shamanism in a sense?
Yeah. I'm not big on making people spend thousands of dollars just to get permission to move their bodies.
Right.
And I love a complicated thing, and I love the best of the best. And I have a lot of expensive machines in my studio because of that, and because I like to tinker. If you want what I think should be everywhere, let me introduce you to the yoga trapeze, which costs less than $50 if you want to order it online. For a while, it was trademarked, I think, by Yoga Body, who had also did wheels. And then I think they lost their trademark, which is fine because the generic versions I thought were actually better. I believe it's probably like sunglasses. They're all made in the same factory and they slap different brand names on them.
Right.
So anyhow, this, you see, I pulled some ropes down from my ceiling. They have holes in them at different heights. They're called daisy chains. I can attach this sling at any height that I want and create an environment where my body can fly in space like it's swimming. And it's so strengthening. And the best part about it is that you can't fake any movement because you're simply suspended. So some of these moves, I'm doing standing on the ground. This one, you can see it's the same kind of fluid length as the Gyrotonic system, but now I'm doing it with a single piece of fabric that costs less than $50, and I can get all kinds of instruction online. And not to disparage the Gyrotonic system, also a great movement form, but I think this is probably the most accessible, cost-effective, at-home version of something similar if you want to get that free-flowing feeling. And you can also go, if you want to use it for like yoga purposes, sure, you can go fully upside down. You can hang out. You can
Have you ever thought about
or,
joining the circus? I mean,
I get paid a lot more as a trainer, and I also like to boss people around. So
you found your niche. I got you.
Yeah, I found my niche, and I like to empower people to play.
Yeah, well, Jupiter and Gemini. I mean, it's weird because it's like you're tapping it. I mean, this is like someone I just watched Nosferatu last night with my girlfriend, and it's like there's an alchemist who's geeking out on all the demonology or whatever, and everyone's like, "What the hell?" It feels not that demonology has anything to do with this, but it's like you've got this whole little world that is very not only effective and magical, but like intuitive, applicable, practical. And I mean, you're used to this, but this is like kind of blowing my mind. And where I'm just like, whoa. I mean, this makes sense. This should be available. And obviously this is like a playground for adults, basically.
Yeah. There are so many times when I look up from my work day and go, my God, how did
Look
I
what
get
I've
so
done.
lucky?
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's very self-determined. At this point, people come to me for what I offer. As far as the transformation goes, it's not about the modalities. Those are just different languages that we speak in order to find a better way of being inside of your body, more power, more agency. And how do you do that? Like, all bodies like to speak their own language. I think the job for trainers is to be a translator, and part of that is like the Jesuits, like, learn a lot of languages, learn a lot of philosophies, so that you can figure out where someone sits within all of them and speak their language, so they're not striving to understand you. That's a shitty place to train from, when you're trying to get something right and the trainer tells you you're not right,
Oh
and
no,
the
I've had
trainer
that.
can't convey.
Yeah.
That sucks.
Well, it's a little
And
defeating, and then it feels like
yeah.
Sisyphus a little, where it's like, oh my god, I want to get there. I've had that. My girlfriend's into myofascial release and all these kind of modalities, very similar to you, and not all these machines, but similar. And she'll be, the things that she takes for granted, because she's very petite and kind of in her body and compact and able to move, dancer, former break dancer, all this kind of stuff. And I'm like a lanky guy who's got all these cricks, and I'm always, whenever I trip, I'm like, oh my god, my body, like I've got spina bifida, what's going on? So when she's trying to walk me through things, what you're saying basically, and it's nothing against her, she's a great teacher, it gets to this place where it's like, I'm trying and it's not translating, and they're kind of like, this is the method, and if you don't do the method in this way, you're not going to get the results, and it can become very frustrating.
Yeah, like, define what results, right? Like, what are the results we're looking for? Because sure, there's a quality of movement that will give you a particular kind of result, but I think the issue a lot of the time is that you're trying to create the container as opposed to the meaning. And when you can give the feeling first and allow the container to take shape around that meaning, it's so much more efficient. So what I tend to do is try to give someone a single feeling in their body. Be that I want them to feel the back stretch at a certain place, or I want them to feel the push of resistance and how consistent that is from the arm all the way to the sternum.
Right.
And once they have that, then I'll add in machinery or make the movement more complex. But we're always returning to a quality of movement, at which point, in general, alignment is less of an issue, because the body is organized around an intention, not just copying a shape.
Dude, I mean, my bite is big blood. I'm gonna have to check out all your stuff. So is there anything you want to talk? I mean, we've got some time, but we can start diving down all sorts of rabbit holes.
Well, I have one thing, just since we're talking about results. I had a friend ask me, she's not in chat, but maybe you have any generic advice or idea. I'd be curious, especially since obviously you deal a lot with body movement. Of course, these past years, especially, dare I say, Ozempic or whatever, people have been going down all kinds of crazy rabbit holes. The weight loss topic is a big thing, of course. Also in Europe, I guess, especially in the US, in terms of statistics, you do have quite many people that struggle with this. What is it that you would recommend to anyone who's like, oh, I want to lose weight? Of course, that's a very generic question, I'm aware, but I'm pretty sure, since you've dealt with lots of people as well and you have some expertise, what are the things you would recommend? Yeah, I'll not say anything else.
There's a difference between like vanity, like I want to lose 5 pounds, versus like I want a different healthy body, like I want to be in my meat suit rightly.
Yeah. So I think if we're looking for, like, I want to be in my meat suit, clearly anything that you're getting from me is going to have that as like its paramount filter. If we want someone to be able to lose weight, well, you need to find, you as in the person who wants to lose weight, or you as a trainer would need to help them find some movement they love doing, and start with what feels fun for them, right? That intersection of curiosity and just enough failure that you want to keep on going and get better. And that's going to be different for everyone. It's going to be different times in your life. But as opposed to telling someone this is the best exercise for weight loss, you should go and do it. Movement is really good for digestion and for weight loss. And if you feel good moving, then you'll do more of it. And that's a great ground zero to start from. And for one person, that might be a Zumba class. And for someone else, that might be a walk. And for someone else, it could be kickboxing. And for someone else, it may be parkour. And someone else wants Feldenkrais. And you say, great, do that. And then from there, you stone soup it, right? You get where they're comfortable, and then you add one more element. And then wherever the curiosity inside your body feels like when you're sticking your tongue in a hole in your mouth where there was a tooth, that's the place you want to learn. And then you're engaged, weight loss. I mean, if you want to talk body composition, I have fundamentally a better body as far as mass and body composition now than I did when I was in my 20s. And that is because I do progressive overload strength training on my Galileo. So I am lifting heavy weights to the point of failure while using whole body vibration to recruit many more muscle spindles than I would if I were just using my brain.
It's some
And
American
I would,
Gladiator shit. I mean, that's like extra in a
yeah,
good way. I'm like, wow, that's
yeah.
intense.
I mean, I wouldn't recommend doing it on a cheap plate. The Galileo plates are very strong and they're also very well balanced. Doing it on a cheap plate that has a driving arm on one side and just a reciprocal wobble on the other might be really destructive for your nervous system. I don't know because I just train on my plates.
Mm-hmm.
But I would say that if you want to change your body composition, then you want to look at strength training. If you just want to be overall more agile, which also helps you move through life with little fidgets and getting creative, because I think a lot of the problem is just that we only do a couple of things all the time. We're always sitting in the same way, we're walking in the same way. We lose options and then we stop being creative, and ultimately there's a lot less caloric demand on our bodies because we're still and we're stagnant. So anything that encourages you to play with your space also would be good, or just going a little more furniture free. You know, those would be sneaky ways of getting into that weight loss realm. When I think about weight loss, I just think about how much religion plays a part in how we have deified this long and lean aesthetic. You look at like all these sylph-like female versions of angels and saints, and then you look at the spires going through the cathedral and how they have that same spiraling long and lean look. And then I think about in Tel Aviv, where it was a non-iconic religion, and your places of worship were defined by a small star on these concrete Bauhaus-style buildings all side to side. And the fashion in Tel Aviv was magnificent because they weren't stuck with the same ideal of how to make a curvy feminine silhouette. It was chunky, it was fun. There were like big pockets that it felt much more like farm couture in beautiful, beautiful ways. They were complex, but they weren't constrained by this idea that women should want to look thin over anything else.
Lady
And
Galadriel style.
yeah, like
Yeah.
I just think like this is a place where religion has done women really dirty as far as making them feel like they have to look near dead to be holy.
Yeah, that's one thing. I mean, it's when we get into like physical ideals in any way, obviously, you know, not every guy can be Arnold Schwarzenegger or whatever. So it's like, or in women, like you're
So
saying. Go
just
ahead,
to
Rafa.
briefly follow up, so actually was Irina said, she said thank you. She says out of touch and used to love to move, Bikram yoga, hot Pilates. Now she's saying the weight is making it difficult. Whether walking could maybe help. And it's not
Sure.
for looks, but it's able for health and to be able to do the movements that you want to do,
I mean, walking
to
is
be
a
fit and
really,
healthy.
yeah, walking is a great place to start.
It's dare I say we evolved to do it. Like we've maybe neglected that pocket of our mechanics for so long that we feel like it's weird. I mean, I go for walks when I can and stuff, but one thing that I find and you kind of just have to get in this mindset of like it feels good to sweat when you get into it, but I've always been more of an indoor cat kind of vibes where I'm like, I don't want to sweat so much. Once you get over that hump, you'll live. Anyway, I'm just rambling. Yeah, she should walk. I mean, do what you
So,
can. Go ahead.
well, I also have a YouTube channel and
Mm.
it's filled with videos that are like 5 to 20 minutes long of mini workouts and like videos that they're all just simple home tools. And they're proprioceptive training techniques to help unlock the body. And from there, almost any of them can turn into a playful workout. So if you want a bunch of ideas on how you could get yourself moving in more playful ways, just go to my YouTube channel. I'm Domini on YouTube
Mm-hmm.
and check out some of the videos there.
I'm gonna subscribe today.
Okay.
I'm sure my girlfriend's all about this. We're gonna geek out on you. Get ready. I want to annoy you though. So I mean, one theme that keeps coming up and it is very much the Knight of Wands is play. I mean, it's playing. It's playing in an action-oriented way. That doesn't mean you have to be wild and like break all the windows and like it doesn't have to be Pinocchio Island donkey, kids or whatever. You've obviously, given the Haight Ashbury stuff, played with all sorts of flavors of play. But at the same time, it seems like something that maybe people forget is like it's a little like why so serious, like the Joker stuff. Like we've taken stuff so seriously that we're almost like condensing and compressing, and we have to move and loosen and move with excitement. I mean, in a Bashar sense, I don't know if you're into that Daryl Anka and Bashar and stuff, but it's like follow your excitement and see where that goes without any expectations, blah blah blah.
Yeah.
So just briefly, because I'm seeing this, these
Yeah.
are also classes that you offer online as well.
Yeah, the Jedi Spine Tricks is sort of my version of a teacher training. So it combines practical anatomy, core breath work, which is a whole breath work system that I've developed to unlock the inside of your body, and proprioceptive training tools. It's non-denominational, so it stands for Joint Enhancement Dynamic Integration. It is not at all affiliated with Disney. That having been said, I love a good pun. So
Mhm.
we have 3 different stages. Well, actually 4 in Jedi Flying
Padawan.
Tricks now. Yeah. So we
Is that
have,
it? Okay, yeah.
well, we have the Source Awakens, we have Spry Walker, we have the Empire Draws Back, and we have the Breath Star.
So
And it's
witty.
like this overview of the entire body where we unpack it and fully inhabit it and just create mobility with the power of your mind. So yeah, that's kind of the teacher training thing. And yes, that's fully available online. I just taught a version live in Seattle, and I've updated all of the course modules at this point in time. I do teach a lot online. I got a global classroom during COVID, and I don't ever want to let it go. I think right now, given the sad state of our world, the healing power of group exercise is also not to be discounted. And I would recommend to everyone that they just find a local class in their area and start going, because having bodies moving together can be incredibly healing and also strengthening for the psyche, as well as it's an important way for us to mobilize and organize. So yeah, like take class from me online if you want. Also find people in your area who are doing something cool and go meet with them and inhabit your bodies with them. And that could be at a gym, or it could be like an outdoors martial arts class. It just really depends on where you are, you know?
I'm gonna do something I don't think I've ever done in a podcast, Raphael. I have to use the restroom like badly.
That's all right.
30 seconds. You guys just talk
Yeah.
amongst
That's all
yourselves.
right.
Hey,
And I'll be
listen,
right
don't
back.
flush yourself down.
I won't. I'm just peeing, so it'll be quick.
Okay.
All right.
And so
Yeah.
Raphael, yeah.
Yeah. Well, anything else you want to share? Anything you would like to mention? I mean, I think it's great. Of course, there's classes everywhere, but I think it's pretty awesome that you have this online as well, especially since, of course, everyone has particular knowledge. But this is something that anyone can do, even if I don't have any devices or equipment at home.
Yeah, exactly. Like I love my expensive machines. Also, I love a good TheraBand, right? The amount of things that you can do with just a piece of like stretchy plastic, because it adds a dimension of contraction and essentially adds a joint. There's so much there, and everything has its place. And so my YouTube channel is entirely stuff that you can do with home things. Anything, be sure there's a couple of machines there, but in general, like it's a rich, playful environment using very cheap home exercise tools. I also have a newsletter that I write most Sundays. I'm about to give myself some mental time off from the commitment of doing it every single Sunday, but basically every Sunday morning for years now, I would send off a newsletter with thoughts on movement and like a brief little workout video for people. And if you want to go back into the archives, those are all on my website under blog. And there's just so many. And they're all titled off of bad puns. So you're welcome.
Where is my mind? If I could turn
Yeah.
back time, uncomfortably numb, hum as you are. Very good.
Yeah, it goes on. I have a notes file with hundreds of these.
That's awesome. And there's, all right, these are your links. Perfect. Everything is organized. Very cool. Very cool. So is there anything, I don't know, that you're developing right now, or something that you're looking into in particularly right now, or something, I don't know if new is the right word, or what you even, maybe even generically, societally, I'd be interested in. You already mentioned the importance, I guess they call it limbic resonance, right? And just what you mentioned was like, oh, now I know why I have to go to that festival to dance for a week, you know, if I'm not doing it enough otherwise. How would you say is the state of the human body even collectively right now? Or what would you say is important for individuals to look at? Because it seems, of course, especially in the West, many individuals are quite disconnected from their bodies, especially adults. I mean, I already gave some great insights. What I really loved, what you mentioned, is just to find what is the most fun. That's why I come back to dancing, because for me, dancing is much more fun, certainly, than doing sit-ups or push-ups, even though I can do some of those as well. What would you say about all of that?
I think that humanity is going through another really rough growth phase. You know, we'll see if we make it through. As you know from my charts, I'm not that attached to this life. I'm attached to being here for
That
my
helps.
kids. But otherwise, you know, it's like I'm here for shits and giggles, and I know I'll come back one way or another. But it's a really fascinating time to be alive. And by the way, if you haven't noticed, talking to me is like watching a Polaroid develop. So bear with me because I am going to answer your question. So I was in the cold plunge a few weeks ago, one of the many mornings where, I wake up and read the news and I'm like, oh, fuck, I'm back in this reality. Jesus.
Not my
So
timeline.
can I try again? And I think, because I read Narnia so early, I really do believe that somehow I'm going to wake up somewhere different. And nope, still Groundhog Day, back on Earth. So anyhow, I was in the cold plunge. And that is a weird place for the universe to talk to me because the cold plunge is not a comfortable place. And usually when the universe talks to me, I'm like rolling on the floor. I'm on a long walk somewhere. And then it starts giving me downloads. But this one came in the plunge and it was very short. And it said, the US has an important lesson to learn. And unfortunately, you and your friends need to be here to witness it. And since the time of the Second World War, it's wandered around with this idea that it is the savior of the world and kind of the policeman of the world. And it has this golden child syndrome where the US, where America is not even aware of how it's seen by the rest of the world as the drunken bully at a party, right? As the frat boy who's behaving so badly. And the US will need to be brought to its knees in order to finally have the humility to contribute to the world in any meaningful fashion. So I
It's like a
think
little like
that's,
Captain Von Trapp. I mean, we're assholes, and we're gonna have our hearts broken a little, and remember
yeah,
that the kids aren't just,
yeah.
I hear what you're saying. I don't know why
It's,
Sound of Music
and
came to mind, but go ahead.
it's terrifying to be living in this country right now. And I wonder why I'm not taking my family back to Canada. But I know because I'm supposed to be in California and this is where the universe helped me build a house of plants and dragons. And this is my community. And so we're here and we're witnessing this very challenging time. And I think a piece of why we need to do it right now is because we've become so disconnected from our lives because we can accomplish so much now with our hands through screens and vision worlds that are created without our hands on, right? We have machines building things we vision, then we use AI. We're becoming less and less connected with that process of creation. And one element of this is that we need to come back into our bodies and activate that and also work back on our human connections. And it's not that we don't have many fantastic tools. Like I don't judge. I believe in better living through chemistry and better living through technology. But we also have to do it from a place of actually inhabiting our bodies. So I think that coming back into yourself and finding the ability to change your mind state through physical work and breath work, as opposed to just chemicals or something coming from outside of you, is an important piece of us figuring out how we're actually going to correct the course that we're on right now for humanity.
Yeah, it's like a character development moment in a sense. We're building a spot.
Yeah.
I mean, for a lot of reasons. Like the movie Wall-E. I mean, if you've seen Disney movies and stuff, we're headed on that path. Everyone's hitting the easy button. We just want convenience. We want quick, cheap, whatever. I don't want to just rally against North America. I don't mind it to a degree, but just having been to Europe and other countries, and it's like the strip mall reality and just the consumer capitalism kind of shadow aspects. Like in a sense, we're getting lessons. Mark Twain said, there's lessons you can get by holding a cat by its tail. You can get no other way, kind of thing, right? So it's like this is what happens. I mean, we've made our choices. We're sleeping in the bed. Hopefully, enough people like yourself are turning on to. It's not even like alternative. It's in a weird way. It's like why it feels like we were robbed of something. And I'm not going to blame anything, but it's like, okay, we maybe it's the Descartes thing. We externalize the world and we're all in our heads. We're thinking, and we're not, like you're saying, embodying and playing in a certain way. And it's not that we can't, people do, but it's not such a high value in culture. But everybody's miserable and obese and, more Kim Kardashian ending isn't going to fix it or whatever. You see what I'm saying? So, it is what it is in the sense that like, it's like a hangover kind of. It's like you drink a bunch of booze and then you're like, oh shit, I feel like crap. And then it's like, what do you do now? Like,
I think we've made simple group exercise and just body weight primal movement training less sexy because marketing is less capable of holding those for itself, right? You can't sell someone a bear crawl. It's too easy for them to figure out how to do it on their own. So you would have to make a machine and then make up a story about something people need that they, the pain point to then sell them a machine. And that whole just like get people together to go to the park, to move. Where's the marketing in that? And so where's the motivation to talk about a lot online? And so capitalism has had a negative effect in that way.
Yeah. It's I mean, as they say, the best of times, the worst of times. Like there's so much. I mean, the fact that we can talk on the internet through three very triangulational places and stuff like this. It's like, wow, we're living in the dream of the magicians and the shamans of the past. But at the same time, we lost something along the way, and I guess we asked to do that in a weird way. I don't know about your ontological presuppositions, but it seems like you're
Are we going to tell the story of Siddhartha now?
no, but you can if you want.
Ah,
Yeah, I mean I mean, if you're into Buddha, you do have a lot of Buddhas in your backyard and dragons. We could talk about that. But like, yeah,
yeah.
Buddha's whole trip, it's like he was Paris Hilton in the Playboy Mansion or whatever, and it's like it's all good. It's all it works. And then the reality of entropy and whatever life, the less beautiful parts seeped in, and he had to, his fragile eggshell mind cracked, and he had to go down that rabbit hole. What did you want to talk about Siddhartha for?
Just this idea that like we had it and then it went away. We lost it and then now we're rediscovering it. That thing, and there's that constant. So
There's a
I think
magic
that
there,
we
though.
do that.
It's like
Well, we
falling out
do.
of love and taking things for granted, and being like, "Oh my God, you're so beautiful," as opposed to like always being on fire. There's different lessons. It's not like one's right or wrong. It's just they're very
Oh,
different
right.
qualities of lessons.
Yeah. Also, psychoanalytic sampling is the same thing. You're taking some of this work once, you're deconstructing it, and you're using as raw materials to build something else. Or you discover something again and again and again, but it's different every time. Just like you say, you never step on the same river twice. Through simple repetition of a movement, the movement you did on round 1 is different than round 10.
Yeah.
Just by repeating it. So I think there's a lot of that, and we'll cycle through. We'll come back.
Are you on the America is Atlantis 2.0 trip, or how? I mean, how new age do you get with this stuff? I don't want to pigeonhole you. Yeah.
Not that new agey. I like new age I can back up by science. I
that's
like to take
practical.
the magic and explain why it works. And I do think there's a lot out there where humans, because we're arrogant and we think that if we can't measure something, it doesn't exist. We haven't looked enough at those things we don't yet know how to measure. There are a lot of different factors going on that we then lump into this one category called the sixth sense, but they're actually much more discernible than you would think. One example I have of that is when early on during COVID times, we did discover that therapists can actually read the electromagnetic signals that people are giving off through a screen. And up until we were forced to all
please
go
repeat
online,
that. Who can read what?
that therapists, this is like what I remember from something I read in 2021. So please don't take my word as the absolute truth.
We
But
never
basically,
do. Don't worry.
good.
Yeah.
I don't either. But what I
Yeah.
remember reading, it was really resonated with me as a movement teacher, because it's what I was discovering. You can 100% read the electromagnetic signals that someone is giving off through a screen. Those, you can call them micro expressions, it's a piece of it, but also just like the shifts in the body and emotions. And they're very minute, but they're also very refined. It's as effective to do that through a screen as it is to do in person. I think there's other benefits to doing things in person too, but there's just equally other benefits to doing things through a screen. And so that would be an example of something that we didn't know that we could measure until we measured it, but was always there. Atlantis 2.0, like, yeah, that's, for me, that's mythology. And I don't think I believe enough in linear time to believe in a past time. I like the version of time that was put forth in Conversations with God, which are also incredible books. If anyone
I haven't
hasn't
read
read
those.
them,
Yeah. No.
oh my God,
Okay. I got it
you
homework.
are
I hear
in
you.
for a treat.
I'll give you BBC Narnia. You give me Conversations with God. It's all good.
It's an even trade.
Yeah.
So, and the audiobooks are beautiful. But God, she describes time as a story written on a papyrus scroll that is wrapped around itself. And so we experience time given our place in the story, but our jump to the past or the future might actually be more direct if we went through the paper
Like a wormhole.
than around where the
Yeah.
linear narrative was written.
Right. I can dig that. When I alluded to Atlantis, I mean, I'm not sitting here thinking, I don't dwell on that. I'm not like all about it, but the idea kind of at a very kind of materially reductionistic level for woo is like, we're experimenting in a way that's scientific and mental, and we're pushing it just, modernity, basically. We're just like, we're going into very much how things appear on the surface. And you can, Werner Herzog has a good movie. I forget what it's called, but basically it's like, it shows these Buddhist monks, listening to iPods or whatever. It's like, are they in Nirvana right now? Like, what's going on? I don't know where I'm trying to wrap this into, but the idea is, I guess we've pressed into, it's almost like stats in an RPG, where it's like, you've got whatever magic and you got physical attributes and all this stuff. We've pushed into certain domains so heavily that, like, in cosmology, we're hitting the background radiation of the Big Bang or whatever. So we're like, we can't go further there.
Yeah.
With the pixelation of the subatomic reality, where it's like, it's lending itself more to hyper mysticism and stuff in scientific, quantum mechanics, basically, right? Where it's like, it's a soup of possibility. So we're hitting these domain limits, if you want to put it that way, for the time being, and that is going to necessarily make us probably take raise the other EQ it out. It's like we have the bass loud as hell and no treble, and it's like, all right, well, we should probably listen to those frequencies a little differently. So that's what I was kind of getting at with the Atlantis thing. I don't think we're actually that, although there's a whole Freemasonic kind of endeavor with America being this, like, Luciferian is a strong word, but it's like this new city on a hill, like all the things. Like, America is this weird thing, and then even San Francisco, California, where you are, is almost like a hyper version of that. I'm rambling. Oh my god! And I do want to say, even though this has nothing to do with it, I shouldn't have drank coffee before the episode. I'm fine. I'm not like shattery and buzzy, but it's like my bladder has learned a lesson here. So, dragons. You want to talk about dragons? Pete's Dragon, one of my favorite fucking movies.
Sure.
You've got ink of dragons. You've got dragons in the back of your yard. In the voice message you sent, you said, though you are a Virgo, you tend to identify more with the Chinese astrology of being a fire dragon, I believe, if I remember. I'm a water ox. I don't know what Raphael is. What a
dragon, I think.
Oh, you're a dragon yourself, are you?
Sorry, no, snake, of course.
Snake.
No,
So you're 77.
Of course, I'm a snake. 89.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
Yeah, we're big. I just turned 40. So what resonators do you have with dragons? I had a cool acid trip once where I met a dragon that was like Falcor / Miyaki, or Spirited Away kind of dragon, and I was like, maybe there's an archetypal level. I'm not like tripping on dragons all day, but it's like, what are your thoughts on dragons? What is a dragon to you? You've got it on your flesh, for God's sakes.
I've got a couple of them on my flesh at this point. I'm also in the process of redoing all of my tattoos. You can see the dragon I have going on my back if you look at the pain and tattooing series on YouTube. I'm not about to take off my shirt for YouTube right now.
Okay, so that's the pay-per-view version. Yeah,
trust me. Yeah, me only fans, not so much. But yeah, so there's a dragon on my arms, a dragon on my back. It's funny because Yaz, they were a hip group in the 80s.
Yes is amazing.
Not Yes. Yaz, Y-A-Z. So
never heard of them.
Kind of similar vibe as Eurythmics, but more psychedelic. They have one song, I before E, except after C, and it's got all this like psychedelic clips. But there's one, dragons. The policemen knew were supposed to breathe fire, and occasionally get themselves slaughtered. And it's kind of that. I think for me, the whole dragon thing began when, growing up in the 70s and 80s as a kid. I think I was 8 years old. Yeah, it was my grade 3 teacher. I would read my horoscope, and I would read what it said about Virgo, motherly, organized. And I would look at my crazy mess of a bedroom where all of my projects were on the floor. And as far as my psyche is concerned,
can't relate.
Cleaning up my mess is like telling a project that it can't come to fruition. Like, I'm seeing all the raw materials for creation there. Why would I ever put them in boxes and separate them, And so I just didn't relate with how they described Virgo. And then my grade 3 teacher told us about Year of the Dragon and Chinese astrology. And I was like, oh yeah, I'm a dragon. It is a parade. I was born with a horseshoe up my ass, and I'm going to speak my opinion. And I have a combination of everything magical. And that was just what I resonated with. And more as I grew into myself, like the dragon thing has really come into play actually since I had kids. And I decided with my first child that I have 2, and that is it. I'm done pushing humans out of my vagina. This is clear. I will take on dogs and plants from here on out. But they're great kids. Yeah. So we've done this. So it was with my first child, my daughter, Louisiana Marie. And I just decided that I was going to tell her that dragons are real in all of the other dimensions, and her mom is a dragon. And I think I've just kind of grown into that. And at this point, people bring me dragons and I find dragons. And now that I have a property, it's filled with dragon statues, but they all have their own names and they all have their own personalities. And I feel like they call me to come home. And I bring that out in my friends for sure. I think a lot of what we do is give people permission to exist. And whenever you're going to rock star something, when you're going to make an example of yourself, be it that raising the bar, push to the side, or like pushing that thing down so you can crawl over it, you're giving other people to be that thing as well. And so I think that's a lot of what the dragon is for me, is giving other people permission to have a little more fiery chaos in their lives.
Well, obviously, I mean, the Knight of Swords, this guy's got a flamethrower. It's like a dragon kind of spewing flames. So there's the element of, I didn't see it. I guess like Dragonheart, there's a movie. Maybe I saw that back in the day. There's all sorts of types of dragons, I guess, in an archetypal way. Sometimes people look at them as like wisdom keepers and like this kind of like ancient serpent thing, like pre-serpent thing, kind of like how we have Kundalini and serpents. Yeah, so I didn't know. Do your tattoos have names? Like, do they have symbology to you?
My tattoos don't have names. There's a whole other story about the tattoos and striving to find balance. And I think, honestly, had someone told 26-year-old Domini the meaning of permanence, I wouldn't have gotten tattoos. As a clothing designer,
tattoo. Yeah,
I know, but as a clothing designer, if you just told me, listen, you do this and you're going to be stuck wearing the same fucking bracelet every day of your life, I wouldn't have done it.
What do you mean wearing the same bracelet?
Well, so basically, like, if you're looking as tattoos as something that's on your body, but also like jewelry is an accessory, right? So all of this changes the line. When I bought my wedding dress, I had to find one that had the correct back so that I framed my tattoos enough. I have a Pieta on the right side of my back that the Virgin Mary and dead Jesus were peeping out from behind my dress. The snake going over my collarbone is great, but I can't wear a sweetheart neckline without that neckline forever being disrupted. And so, we go in with this idea of what we want to be, and we don't realize what permanence means. And like what permanence was for me with the illustrations on my body was I was able to become one of the illustrated bodies that I loved to train. So little back history, when I went for all the tattoos, I was assisting this great yoga teacher called Rusty Wells at the Yoga Tree in the Castro, which meant that I was going in a couple times a week to a sea of hot sweaty gay men on yoga mats. And like, there were some of us women there too, but that was really the scene. And I couldn't get over those ones who had tattoos and how beautiful it was to watch the illustrations on their body move. So I went for it without looking at the limitations of it. And for me, it was like, what I want to put on my body that has some meaning, but I didn't need to like carve someone's name. Like, there's no particular symbolism to anything that's on my body beyond it feels appropriate. It would fit there. I want to see this thing move.
Okay.
Sorry to break that down. It's spirituality to it.
You never have to break or apologize. In a sense, it is what it is. I always tell my girlfriend, like Falcor, it's a luck dragon. I'm like, I'm a luck dragon because things tend to work out. It seems like you got goddamn luck up the wazoo in terms of just like synchronicity and following the vibration properly in your life. Do you? Yeah, I mean, you don't have to be like theistic.
Some call it luck, some call it discernment, but please explain yourself.
So I have space karma. I definitely get signals from the universe. I feel like I'm kind of cosmic and out there, and my existence goes beyond the flesh. And most of the time, my prayers to the universe or God or whatever you want to call it are like, hey, it's going great. Thanks. Let me know if you need anything. And that also means that when I get a hit of like, you need to do this, you need to help this person, you do this for this person, I do it without question. One aspect of dragons is that we are not great with money because we never have to struggle for it. It's usually a pretty easy flow through. And so it's hard to learn how to save because that's not how dragons work. We tend to like just breathe it out and keep on going. There's definitely always a parade aspect. Dragons also have secret friends, right? Every piece of the Chinese astrology has different relationships with the different signs based on their positioning within this 12 animal.
Or is the alchemy of the archetypes or whatever.
Yeah. So people who are 5 years younger than you are your secret friends. And I'll tell you, I have so many rooster friends, people born in 1981. So a few of them started calling themselves the dragon cocks. And just seeing those kind of mythical correlations, I think it's fun for people when you're described as an animal. And I think that's part of the appeal of Chinese astrology is you get to relate to yourself as like some kind of semi-mythical being, be it that you are like the sheep or the horse or the dragon. They give these attributes and then you can find yourself in that or not. It's interesting because they give it to everyone within a whole year. And if you see the multiple personalities, right, of people even born on the same day, you're like, how can this be? But talk to any school teacher and ask them about class personalities, and you'll find out every single class had its own personality. So those are what I play with when I think about dragons. But dragons are a combination of many animals. So I think if you look at the Asian dragons, it's like a combination of 7 different animals. I know there's the camel, there's the snake, the claws come from something too. Again, the Google is your friend there. Or the Western dragon, resembles more of like a flying dinosaur.
Mm-hmm.
But either way, it's like this larger than life thing we put together to contain things that are larger than life.
It's almost like totemic in that sense, where it's like, all
very
right,
much.
I'm a raven or whatever. Even within Harry Potter, people are like, oh, the schools are almost Myers-Briggsian in a sense, and it's like, oh, are you witty? Are you helpful? Are you bold? Are you, whatever it is? Are you sneaky?
Right.
So yeah, it's funny. There's wheels within wheels, like infinitely. So it's a fractal like that. So I haven't done that much. When I was in Australia right before COVID popped, I was kind of starting to geek out a little more because I don't know why. I was just resonating more with. I didn't do a whole lot. I mean, I'm into astrology, but not Chinese astrology. So there's many doors. There's many magician's nephew pools to play with. And then you just said the keyword permission. I mean, it's like, if you don't, like in Bashar terms, it's like if you have a permission slip, you're going to say yes to these things, and you don't have to have an expectation of what it brings to you. Like part of the novelty of exploration as a soul is to like apprehend things in a new way, like it's like new to you, but you have to be willing. The willingness is the crux, really. So is that permission slip. What do you want to talk about? We got a couple minutes.
Yeah, I do. I have a client arriving in 3 minutes.
Okay, well, I'm glad I asked.
Yeah.
So we could wind it hard down real quick. Gear shift up. Abridged intro song and a quick exit. But yeah, no, you're more fascinating than I expected. I'll be honest. I mean, I didn't have an expectation, but I'm always pleasantly surprised. It feels like I'm treasure hunting, and I'm like, oh, it's not just gold doubloons. It's like there's tiaras and shit in here. What the heck? So it's pretty cool. I'm glad our paths crossed. There's no mistakes and stuff. But if people weren't aware of you, now they can be, and check out your stuff. I'm kind of curious as to maybe some, and like succinctly, what obviously your offerings on the websites and the social medias. We'll post that up in the comments. What are some hopes and ambitions that you haven't done that you want to be doing, or where do you see yourself going now?
So I just want to backtrack to one thing that we almost said before we segued into the end. The danger is in believing that you're right.
Humility is one hell of a drug. You're going to learn one way. Yeah.
Yeah. And if you start thinking that you're right, you close yourself off to all of these lessons, because you start interpreting everything in the world in order to prove yourself more right. And it's just such a boring, limited way to be, right? It's way better to be able to apologize by saying, hey, sorry, I was an asshole. And also be like, hey, I think I was wrong, and then learn and kind of bouncy house your way through life, I think is more fun than walking on that safe path of being right. Everything is on my website. My Instagram is very active for my professional life. My Facebook is more my personal life. I'm very reachable. I respond to messages on any platform. And the website, if you start to browse around, I mean, I have built my own website now for over a decade.
It's beautiful, by the way.
It's like a labyrinth, and there are subpages within subpages. So have a good time.
Yeah, great photography. I mean, it's just well designed, and I thought it was very aesthetic, very succinct, and yet still like cool. I mean, it's a weird way. It's not just sterile. It's got life to it. Yeah, Domini, you're dope. You're definitely Team Rabbit Hole. I mean, clearly you've been doing the trip for a long time, and you're not going to stop anytime soon. Very Knight of Wands about you. Thanks so much thanks so much for your time and your energy. You're so cool. Your tribe, obviously. Hopefully our paths cross more often. I won't harass you, but I'll probably pepper you every now and then.
By all means, feel free to harass. We have a small guest house that has the Narnia on the back. You're welcome to stay if you ever come through. And thank you so much for reaching out. And also thanks to your girlfriend.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And then I'm blanking on your name, and I feel so embarrassed.
Jim,
about
don't even
that.
sweat it. Jesus
you're
Raphael.
Jim, but then also Raphael. Yes, Raphael. It was a pleasure to meet you too. I didn't really get to meet you until I listened to that one podcast that Jim sent, and you guys are fascinating. How did you come up with doing
Which one
this?
did you send, Jim?
Oh, that's a long story. I'll send you in a.
Which podcast did you send, Jim?
Aaron Morelli, the Death Doula.
Good. Yeah.
That was an interesting conversation. I'll geek out with you. I mean, we don't have time. You got to go. You got a class. I'll send you some voice messages and stuff about how we came about. But divine sacred disorder and excitement and synchronicity and all this stuff. It's a wild ride. Anyway, y'all, further up and fucking further in. This is how we do it. Find the others and have a good time, but like take it seriously at the same time. She's not, I mean, she's having fun, but she's embodying it. She's not just talking about it. She's walking the path. So
As
take some notes.
demonstrated, quod erat demonstrandum, as they like to say in, European philosophy or whatever, what had to be proven, and you've proven it on the podcast right here by demonstrating. Thank you very much for joining us, Domini. Thank you, Jim, as always, and thanks everyone in chat and everyone checking this out later. Reach out, enjoy
There's your
yourselves.
guess.
Thank you
Later.
so much, Domini. Later.
Later.
Bye.
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 Have a fun class.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.